Hi everyone, and welcome to the event today, which is entitled Ethnography and Representation, a round-table discussion on Bronislovas Pilsudskis and the Ainų. So the event today, as I'm sure many of you know, it accompanies the new exhibition here at the House of Histories, which is entitled A Soul Between Worlds. And the exhibition commemorates the 160th anniversary of the birth of Bronislovas Pilsudskis. And this exhibition presents his works, Ainų history and culture, and tries to also give a glimpse of what it means to be Ainų today. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with Bronislovas Pilsudskis and his life and work, but for those of you who haven't had a chance to visit the exhibition yet, he did have a really eventful and rich life and research as well. So in the late 19th century, he was exiled to Sakhalin in Northeast Asia, where he eventually became an ethnographer. And he worked a lot with the indigenous people of Sakhalin Ainų, and also of the Hokkaido island as well. He has made significant contributions to recording Ainų history, culture, and language, and he remains highly esteemed among both locals and researchers of the region. So in today's discussion, we will aim to explore Bronislovas Pilsudskis as ethnographer, focusing on his research among the Ainų in Northeast Asia, and the discussion will look at Pilsudskis' life and career as shaped by the historical period he lived in, as well as broader questions of representation and minoritization that remain relevant among the Ainų as well as elsewhere. So I will be moderating this discussion. My name is Kristina Jonutytė, and I am an anthropologist by training, so I am very interested professionally in these questions as well, and we have quite a large round table of participants today, so I will go ahead and introduce them. We're still waiting on one participant who will hopefully join us along the way. So I'll just go alphabetically. We have Danuta Oniszkiewicz, who is an anthropologist, a traveler, and an amateur photographer. Her interests lie within circus arts in Europe, as well as indigenous communities of the Hokkaido region in Japan. In 2019, she began a journey around the world, following the path of her ancestor, Bronislovas Pilsudskis. So we'll hopefully hear about her more personal relationship with Pilsudskis here. Traveling by land and sea, the expedition sought to understand both his scholarly and family legacy. Although interrupted by the pandemic and later halted by the war in Ukraine, the journey retained its meaning, and hopefully we'll hear more about it soon. So currently she works as an expedition leader and a tour guide. Then we have Dr. Andžej Pukšto, a political scientist and the head of Department of Political Science at Vytautas University. His research interests are in political tradition and political systems of Central and East European countries, as well as ethnic relations and rights of ethnic and national minorities. He is the author of over 50 scientific publications, including a foreword to the Lithuanian translation of Kazuhiko Sawada's monograph on Bronislovas Pilsudskis, which is coming out this year. We also have Dr. Jadwiga Rodowicz-Ciechowska. She is the co-curator of the present exhibition. She is a Japanologist, graduated from Warsaw University. She also studied at Tokyo University with a PhD specializing in the Japanese classical theater No, on which she has also published books. She previously worked with the theater, later joining the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Poland, and worked as a diplomat for 20 years, serving as the ambassador of Poland in Japan. She was awarded with the Order of the Rising Sun, second-class Golden and Silver Star in Japan. Since 2021, she is the Deputy Director for Development at the Józef Pilsudski Museum in Poland. Then we have Dr. Kanako Uzawa. She is also a co-curator of this exhibition, in particular of the contemporary art section of the exhibition. And this part actually marks the first presentation of contemporary Ainų art in Europe. So we're really grateful and honored to have you. She is an Ainų scholar, artist, and curator working at the intersection of indigenous studies, contemporary art, and museum practice. She's an assistant professor at the Global Station for Indigenous Studies and Cultural Diversity at Hokkaido University, and an affiliated researcher at the Museum of Cultural History, University of Oslo. Her work focuses on Ainų art as a living, relational practice grounded in ancestral knowledge, contemporary experience, and indigenous methodologies. Dr. Uzawa has been actively involved in indigenous-led and community-based research and art projects in Japan and internationally. We also have Simon Wright. He is the programming director at Japan House London in the UK. He originally studied social anthropology at SOAS, University of London, where he first encountered anthropological writings concerning the Ainų. He lived in Kagoshima, Japan throughout the 90s and returned to London to further pursue his studies at SOAS. He worked for the Embassy of Japan, managing the Cultural Activities Program. And Simon Wright joined Japan House London in his current role in 2016. The program he curates there hopes to defy stereotypes and present the many varied aspects of Japanese culture through voices from, rather than talking about, Japan. So the way that we will organize the discussion today is I will start with a round of questions for the participants, and they will be phrased as individual questions. However, all of you are welcome to jump in. And then towards the end of the discussion, I'll also open up the floor to the audience, and you are also welcome to ask any participants any questions. So I think we'll go ahead and start. And I suggest we start with Bronislovas Pilsudskis as a researcher and as a person. And so, although Bronislovas Pilsudskis is primarily perhaps known for his ethnographic research and record, as well as perhaps for his quite exceptional biography, he was also what might be called today perhaps a socially engaged researcher. So my question to Jadwiga is whether you could tell us more about Bronislovas Pilsudskis as an engaged researcher and perhaps an advocate for the Ainų at the time. What do we know about that side of his biography and about his achievements in that realm?
Thank you very much for a kind introduction. I'm very happy I'm here today and that we can talk. We can have some exchange of our ideas and share maybe impressions from this exhibition. Yes, I think the question you posed to me is quite meaningful, as this inclination in Bronislovas Pilsudskis' character and also his personal slant in his studies and his work is sometimes overlooked. He, as we don't have Professor Majewicz with us yet, but the kind invitation of Ambassador of Japan yesterday to lunch, we had the chance to hear his speech on how compassionate Bronislovas Pilsudskis was. It was his inborn quality. He looked at people around him and he had this instinct for helping them. He first approached those oppressed who were in Sakhalin, who were oppressed by the colonization. The colonization of Sakhalin was not done first to, of course, to economically take advantage also of its strategical position in the Okhotsk Ocean and of the eastern shore of Eurasian continent. But it was the idea was that it can be developed with the force of the penal colony. So those who inhabited, who came to Sakhalin, were apart from a small administration, were mostly criminals, and they were sent to serve at the penal colony. Apart from building infrastructure, also to get coal. The coal was discovered next to Due, which is on the western coast of Sakhalin, so they mostly worked there. Then, because Sakhalin was strategically important to Russia, they needed to have a very thorough meteorological observations and very stable knowledge of data, how to navigate and how to use that space. Therefore, Russian administration built a network of meteorological stations, and Bronislovas Pilsudskis worked there. But then that administration, also the penal colony, needed some supplies or transportation, and this local minority people like Nifch, who mostly lived in northern Sakhalin, with the Ainů, who helped them in not also in transportation, but developed their own fisheries. So anyway, he noticed those people around, these smaller people. And then he wrote afterwards, when he came back to Europe, he wrote that he was thankful to those people, to the Nifch and to the Ainů, that they didn't treat him as a criminal. Even if he wore that convict's coat with a yellow diagonal mark sewn to it, they treated him, they liked him, they approached him, they smiled with him, they ate with him. And he served them tea, he invited them for some supper. And this was the way he first developed this close relationship with those people. Then he started, because of sheer interest in them, he started to learn their language, and then he started to jot down their songs and customs and so on. So that was the way he first thought. Then he noticed also he wrote about it extensively, the hideous way in which children of administration workers, Russians, lived in that circumstances. They lacked education, proper education. The Russian was bad. They couldn't count. They behaved not in a nice way. And since he was already quite well educated, he graduated from the gymnasium in Vilnius, or actually in Petersburg, was where he finally graduated. So he was hired as the tutor for Russian administrative people. But then very soon he decided that he should teach also the minority people how to write, how to read, and how to count, so they would not be deceived in transactions. That was the very, very, very beginning. After, he was convicted, he was sentenced in 1887. And after 10 years, so it's 1897, his sentence was shortened from 15 years to 10 due to amnesty issued by the new enthroned Tsar Nikolai II. And then he could settle as a peasant, as a muzhik, pasileniec, so as a peasant settler, and he could get some work. And so he started to work to make his efforts to establish small schools for local children, for minority children. And later on, he was also commissioned to collect artifacts for some museums, some exhibitions, which was very much appreciated. And then he became closer. Then he moved south of Sakhalin to build the meteorological station. And that was the region where the Ainų lived mostly. So he started to study them. And then he was commissioned by the Russian Academy of Science and the Imperial Geographical Society to convey the the actually social census of the Ainų people in Sakhalin, and also to by academia to conduct anthropological ethnographical research of them for 3 years. So he got some money and very advanced at the time equipment, the Edison phonograph, a camera, and he started his work. And then while doing the census, he very soon started to put down notes how to lift the position of the Ainų between themselves, so how to teach them. So later on, I'm not going to talk that long. So anyway, then he wrote later on, he wrote in between 1903 and 1905, while he was doing the research, he wrote a project of principles of governance of the Ainų, which included in big part and a very advanced system of self-government for the Ainų people. He proposed that they choose their own leaders, like not only chiefs, but leaders of the village. And he proposed that they gather once a year at an assembly, and that they work voluntarily. They are not paid, but they work for their community. He also proposed that they will be relieved of military service. The Ainų were very much afraid of military service, that they would be, sent somewhere to the continent, separated from their land, from their families. They were very scared of it. This was also why the Ainų, they were much suspicious of educating their children. They were afraid that once they learn how to write and read and so on, the boys would be conscripted to the Russian army. So they were reluctant to send children. So he proposed that they are relieved, that they would not serve in the army. Instead, he proposed that they would pay some taxes, which they would raise from their fisheries, as they were very good at fisheries. So it was really, then he developed the proposal of the system of mutual help and ubezpieczenie, insurance, social security. He proposed establishing small local ambulatories, and so on. So he wrote it in 1905, and that project, unfortunately, due to the Russo-Japanese war that broke, was just buried in archives and didn't see light for a long time. But some later administrations took it as an example, and they actually used some of his proposals. This is briefly to sum up my answer to your question. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I think we could really have a whole separate talk about this, a separate event. So we have another roundtable participant joining us, Professor Dr. Alfred Majewicz. Welcome. I will introduce. Professor Alfred Majewicz is a linguist. He is a professor emeritus at Adam Mickiewicz University and Nicolaus Copernicus University in Poland. He is the author or editor of over 450 academic publications, including the collected works of Bronislovas Pilsudskis in 4 volumes, with the 5th one in preparation. I think we see it in the exhibition here, don't we, as one of the items. Also, he published a critical biography of Bronislovas Pilsudskis, as well as late Meiji Japan as seen by Bronislovas Pilsudskis, as well as 3 monographs in Polish on the Ainų, with a focus on their oral tradition and language. Professor Majewicz has also published 2 papers on Bronislovas Pilsudskis and Lithuania, which is certainly interesting for us here. And so we started the discussion by talking about kind of social and local engagement of Bronisław Pilsudski. And I will go ahead and ask Professor Majewicz right away. So because you have studied his life and work so extensively, and especially his academic legacy. So I wonder if you could kind of, well, you've obviously published thousands of pages on this, but what would you summarize as his kind of key academic achievements? So what is his key academic legacy that he leaves us with? One or two key academic achievements, because we have such a limited time here. It's okay, right?
Is it working?
Yes.
If it is working, it is a miracle, because sometimes it happens so that everything is on the way for you to achieve what you wanted to achieve or what you had to achieve. I was to be half an hour before. And there were so many circumstances that prevented me from coming here that finally I ran here to be not on time, but as you saw. And this, what we saw here, is a continuation. I came and again there are problems with microphones and so on. Well, to make it short, the problem is that I was not interested in Pilsudski's life, biography, and so on, because we were working in an academic corporation to actually achieve one goal. We wanted to recover the important for research material from wax cylinder phonographic recordings made or taken by Pilsudski in 1902 and 1903. There were definitely the first such recordings of the Ainų language, and the first among recording of languages in general. The first language that was recorded on such a device was the language, also very exotic, the language of Indian Passamaquoddy. It was in 1888, I think, and Pilsudski was very close to it. And at that time, the technology was extremely modern, and well, it was a miracle that you can somehow have the voice to store. You may listen to it later, yeah? So it is like today internet. The introduction of internet is very similar to introduction of phonographic recording and later replaying of. First they wanted it for music, but soon they started recording also other things, among those other things, also languages. So, in this way, he was a very, very advanced, in comparison, advanced, I wouldn't say researcher, because Pilsudski would also never say about him a researcher. Pilsudski ended his education with the end of the first semester of law and the first year at the University of Petersburg. And he was arrested, he was sentenced to capital punishment, and there should be no discussion, no Pilsudski at all. Nevertheless, it happened so that the capital punishment was changed into 15 years of hard labor, katorga, on Sakhalin. And Sakhalin was one great prison and very difficult to escape from, like Alcatraz, but much bigger and much harsher. Yeah, and his life was a misery from the beginning to practically 100 years after his death. Everything was against him. And the two exceptions, or three exceptions, when he was lucky somehow, was first, he was not hanged. And Lenin's brother in the same procedure, and a few other people were hanged. He survived, and he was sentenced to stay in Sakhalin, and it was a misery. And he wanted to survive. So he tried to find something he could do to survive. And he found out that the Aboriginal population loved Sakhalin, their motherland or fatherland, however you call it. They loved it. And they were being suppressed by Russians and by the prisoners who were sent to them. So Pilsudski decided to somehow join them in the misery, companions in misery, yeah? And he started very interestingly, because he usually sought contacts with children, not, because he was somehow a deviating person, only because he wanted to help generally the public. Nevertheless, he started from children, and his way of working was, he cured a child. He saw a child, the child had some scars, something, his eyes were damaged or something like this, and he helped them. He always had with him some medicines, and I see that you are. I will finish quickly. It is important for me to tell this story because otherwise there would be nothing.
I will say, Professor Majewicz, we did just hear from Dr. Rodowicz-Czechowiska about that kind of social engagement in the community. Apologies for cutting you a little bit short here, but we can certainly come back to these questions in the Q&A.
So we come immediately to the meaning of what he did. Science, including research in humanistic, so to say, disciplines, is such a machine that is used as a tool to either improve something or add something new. So either we have something added to our knowledge, or the state of the art is improved. Yeah? And in this sense, especially now, it is so that every year hundreds of thousands of scholarly publications appear, and most of them will very soon become only historical facts and nothing more, because we constantly improve. There is one exception, namely when someone achieves a result that cannot be either improved or questioned. And Pilsudski is an author, or the author, an author, there are more than Pilsudski, an author of such a result. Pilsudski is now famous for collecting, in the first place, for collecting language materials from the language which is called Sakhalin Ainų language. He collected it when every Ainų on Sakhalin spoke in every generation, in their homes and everywhere, in the first place, their mother tongue, the Ainų language. And soon it was so, and nobody collected before him such material. Then nobody collected such material after him. There exists Sakhalin Ainų material recorded later, but it is not the same.
Because, thank you very much, Professor Majewicz.
Sorry, let me finish. Because there were no Ainų speaking Ainų in Sakhalin. The Ainų language got lost very quickly, and nobody could record the natural language. What is now among those materials collected after Pilsudski's achievement is mainly artificial, because it is recording from memories of very old people who remembered something.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution. I am afraid we really have to stop you somewhere, although this is fascinating, certainly.
The problem is that I know too
yes, exactly.
much to select
so
something
you certainly know whom to ask about aspects of Ainų language recording in the discussion bit, but now I think we have a really interesting strand of history coming through Bronislovas Pilsudski's biography and work. So some of the things were already mentioned, such as the repressive Russian imperial regime, and also that Bronislovas Pilsudski, in some ways, his work was shaped by his exile, of course. So I'd like to ask Dr. Andžej Pukšto, in what ways do you think his biography and his work was shaped by the historical period? So would you say he's kind of a product of his time, or was he in some ways kind of standing up to the trends of the time?
Thank you. I think this panel must be located in spring during the museum nights. So if we will start it at the evening, I think sure we will finish at early morning. Yeah, so it's huge, how to say, a lot of topics, huge hero for debate. I must tell, I will try tell shortly, laconically, and from here, from Vilnius, from Vilnius, Kaunas, from Lithuanian perspective, that we checked all Pilsudski family, it's not a big secret, through the glass of Józef Pilsudski. And it's, and we must tell, and even in Poland, I think for a long time, when a person in Warsaw, in Krakow, heard the second name Pilsudski, of course Józef Pilsudski is the first association for everybody. Józef Pilsudski, the leader and the first president, its official name was in another order, but the first leader of reborn Polish state, Republic of Poland in 1918. So Pilsudski, he is the father of Polish independence, the father of the Second Republic. In Lithuania, we must tell very clear that for a long time, Pilsudski had very, very negative connotations. So it's more than clear during the interwar period, during the Soviet period, also at the beginning of Lithuanian independence in the 90s. Pilsudski, it was the person who occupied, who cutted Vilnius. And please have in your mind that at the beginning of Lithuanian independence, at the beginning of 20s, it was organized, a huge non-government organization. It was even the movement in Kaunas and in all Lithuania of returning Vilnius to Lithuania. So, and the biggest problem of interwar Republic of Lithuania, the biggest aim, the main goal of Lithuanian geopolitics in interwar period, the main goal of Lithuanian foreign and security policy, it was how to return Vilnius as a capital to Lithuania. So Pilsudski is not simple enemy for Lithuanians in interwar period after the Second World War, even in Lithuanian emigration, in Lithuanian exile, in Great Britain, in France, in Australia, in USA, or in Stockholm. But Pilsudski is a renegade. I even wrote in English, he was traitor, he was defector, he was renegade. It was not simple enemy. I speak about Józef Pilsudski, of course. He was not simple enemy. He was the part of family, part of big Lithuanian family who renegated Lithuanian nation because he occupied, he cutted the Vilnius as the heart of Lithuanian new modern state. And of course, Pilsudski for Lithuanian, it's something very terrible. But now, in modern time, these emotions, this antagonism against Józef Pilsudski moved less and less. And I would like to also 1 minute, and I will jump to Bronislav. And so I would like to remind big conference which organized Institute of History of Lithuania with Embassy of Poland, with Polish Institute in 2017 in Rotusze, in Vilnius Hall. It was anniversary of Józef Pilsudski. It was 2 days huge conference, and conference was called Józef Pilsudski without emotions. And it's really, I recommend it for everybody to read this excellent book published by Institute of Lithuanian History and Polish History. Józef Piłsudski without emotion, also in Polish, bez emocji. So, and really, I think during the last 15 years, Lithuanians and people in Lithuania started to check Pilsudski family without emotions. And of course, the window also was opened also for Bronislovas Pilsudskis. It's more than clear. So I had to tell this. So because we speak about all not directly about Bronislav, but about all phone, about all family. What I can say about identity? Of course, family was Polish speaking. Maybe if Bronisław Pilsudski would born 20 years later, maybe the wave of Lithuanian national movement will be moved to Vilnius region, to Švenčionys, to Zalavas, to Povevere, and maybe he had the chance to learn also Lithuanian language if he will stay here in Vilnius at the beginning of 20th century or at the last years of 19th century. But of course, he didn't speak Lithuanian. He grew up in Polish atmosphere. He finished Russian gymnasium here in Vilnius. He had some how to say, good feelings. I don't even find some definitions to Lithuanians and to Lithuanian movements. We know what we know. I am sure that we don't know some facts. We know that his good friend was Adomas Varnas, and portrait of Bronisław Pilsudski pointed by Adomas Varnas. It's in collection of your museum, and he is presented here in exhibition. Also, we know, and I wrote this in introduction in Pilsudski biography. I repeated after Professor Raimundas Lopata. Professor Raimundas Lopata discovered that during the First World War, Bronisław Pilsudski was in Switzerland and contact with leaders of Lithuanian emigration, as Jurgis Šaulys, as Janulaitis, with some Lithuanian priests, as priest Adomas Jakštas. And when Lithuanian organized action, they collected money for supporting Lithuania, Bronisław Pilsudski joined them in Switzerland. And absolutely the last sentences, the third connection, which we know, because maybe there are more connections with Lithuanians and with Lithuanian national movement. The third connection is also quite well known, is his scientific article about Lithuanian traditional crosses. It's quite a strong ethnographical article. And of course, he had some knowledge about Lithuanian culture and Lithuanian anthropology, because this article is not small, and he described a lot, and he wrote a lot about Lithuanian traditional wood crosses. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So we are moving into the more kind of personal and family territory of Bronisław Pilsudski. So here I'd like to ask Danuta Oneškevič. You are a descendant of Bronisław Pilsudski, and a few years ago you undertook a journey in his footsteps almost around the world, right? So what would you say his legacy is, I guess, personal or professional, in these various places around the world that you went to? Basically, what did you learn about his person and his work in your travels? And I'm sure this could be another evening as well. So
we could talk about this for a long time. But first and foremost, just to clarify, I am not Bronisław Pilsudski descendant. He was my great-grand uncle. So no, that's
apologies,
fine. That's fine.
relative.
That's fine. Don't worry. That's fine. I traveled to around the world. I decided to travel around the world because I studied ethnography myself. I'm an anthropologist by education, so it started to be for me. It started to be interesting because when I met my descendants, who are Japanese, they came in 2000 to Poland. I learned about the existence of Bronisław, and that was something quite different. And I was a child, so they explained the story of my family in Japan as to a child, which they compared it to kind of a Pocahontas story, that there is a handsome Westerner coming to indigenous people and he falls in love with the local woman and they get married, they have children and so on. So, and I was a teenager, so it stayed somewhere at the back of my head, but meeting my family was the biggest and strangest thing for me as a kid, so especially that I saw my cousin Kanako, who was around my age, and I remember we just looking at each other like, you look different, I look different, and we are family, so that was something very unique in a sense, a unique meeting. And then at the back of my head the story stayed, and then I started studying anthropology. And I got interested in Siberian studies. And I was told basically that, Bronisław Pilsudski is very important. Great, I didn't know why, what he has done. Nobody explained it to me. So I started basically doing research by myself, remembering my family story, what he has done. And I contacted Professor Majewicz and so on, and I started just basically doing research by myself. And then it came up the idea of going to the travels and so on, to see the legacy of how the world has changed after 100 and so on years of what he left behind. And yes, of course, starting with Vilnius. I traveled by land and sea without using airplanes around the world. So, and I started over here. So basically, I found the addresses of places he stayed. We're here in Vilnius is not that difficult because of the very extensive studies of Józef Pilsudski. So, well, as brothers, they lived kind of together. So I just basically found the places and just took the photographs, went into those places, wanted to know what happened with them. So one became a nightclub, for example. The other one was a school, and the other one was some construction works and so on. So at the time, right now, it's probably different. But so in the sense of architecture and social things, how it changed. And also how many people know about Bronisław Pilsudski, not Józef, but Bronisław. So basically I went through then from Vilnius to St. Petersburg by bus, then from St. Petersburg to Moscow, and from Moscow to Kiev and Odessa. And in Moscow and Kiev, he has never been. It was just the logistics. And from Odessa, I met lovely Professor Łatyszew, who was doing an extensive work in Sakhalin, and unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago. Yeah, a couple of years ago. 2 or 3. Yeah. Yes. Couple, 2 or 3. So yes. So I got to Japan and I checked the addresses over there as well. Unfortunately, what happened was that COVID hit. Lovely COVID, and as we all remember how it happened, what happened. So I had to return and stopped the research. And then the moment I was supposed to go and start research again, and I decided that this is the year I'm going. It was 2022, and it was February. And then when I decided that I'm going in summer, Russia did what they did. And unfortunately, research has, I was saying for many, many years postponed, but right now it's just closed. There is nothing I can do right now, and I refuse to go over there because I just cannot get there, first and foremost, and second, well, just no. Unfortunately.
So, Danuta, obviously your interest in Pilsudski's history and Hokkaido region and the Ainų culture is quite personal. And here in Vilnius in Lithuania, we have an exhibition about the Ainų and about Pilsudski's work. And so I kind of want to move on to that issue of representation and of kind of engagement with a culture and region that's quite distant. So my question to Simon Wright is, you actually curated an exhibition on the Ainų in London a few years ago. And so I was wondering whether that exhibition, like how did, I guess, the audience accept that, and what were the kind of issues and questions of representation that you engaged with in curating that exhibition?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. I've been here 24 hours. It's my first time in Lithuania, and I've learned already an awful lot about this man, Bronislovas Pilsudskis. But I have to say that I didn't know about him until I saw that picture in the Nibutani Ainų Culture Museum in 2019, which is when I started the research to create an exhibition at Japan House in London. Everyone thought I would know this man. I come from an anthropological background, but I really don't. I had never come across him before. And you talked about representation. So it started in 2019, COVID hit, research went on hold. But my initial idea to create an exhibition would be from the community itself. And I chose Nibutani because, in fact, there are many connections with the United Kingdom, in fact. There was an Ainų village, yes, I know that Kanako, your relatives are in Nibutani as well. And this was in the 1910 Japan-British exhibition in London. And as an anthropologist, I'd heard about, Ainų in the way that it is represented ethnographically as well. But this time I really wanted something from the people themselves. You mentioned that we talk at Japan House about defying stereotypes of Japan. And in fact, we use the word Japanese cultures. We pluralize the word culture because there are many cultures within that landmass and that archipelago. And one of them, of course, is the Ainų culture. And the Ainų culture within that is different depending on where you are. You have an exhibition here which talks a lot about Pilsudski, which is Sakhalin Ainų mostly, yes? And then we also have got material here from Hokkaido. We're talking about Hokkaido Ainų, and mostly Biratori Ainų from that part of Hokkaido. And so what I wanted to do was to make something very specific to ensure that it was about one particular place and that it was the voices of those people themselves. So my question really, and my anthropology, I think, a long, long time ago, influenced how I think, I suppose, but I wanted them to tell the stories. So what do you want to say about your community? What is important to you? The area of Nibutani in, I think, 2007, correct me if I'm wrong, or 2008, was incorporated as a cultural landscape, the Ainų cultural landscape of Nibutani, where a cultural landscape is where the natural world and the human world interact with each other. And Nibutani in particular, Biratori, we talk about the Iwar, yes, this land that surrounds a village, a kotan, which is the extent of how you can live, yes? It incorporates the mountains, it incorporates the rivers, it incorporates the lower landscape, and it's within this Iwar that you can live, and each settlement has its own Iwar that it either intersects, but you can see how Villages are spaced along a particular river, for example. This is an important part of contemporary Ainu existence. This resurgence and importance of identity surrounding your iwar, surrounding your identity as an Ainu. And COVID, again, you mentioned it.
Don't blame me for it.
was huge in creating a youthful vigor in Nibutani. Especially there were people who had been studying in Sapporo, for example, in other cities, and went home to their village and got stuck there for a couple of years, 2 maybe. And they became more and more interested in their own existence. I mean, these are people that you know very well, yes, of course, and your family. So, and that inspired me to make sure that we had video recordings, that we were able to talk. It was a conversation, and that it was very much from their point of view, what they wanted to show. And I was very interested in making sure that it was the younger generation as well who were having their voice. And they're the ones who are going to take it into the future.
Thank you. So actually, if we continue with this thread of contemporary Ainu life and culture, I'd like to ask Dr. Kanako Uzawa about the kind of most relevant themes and issues, let's put it that way, in Ainu communities today, and especially in Ainu art today, right? Because I think also in this exhibition, I guess the kind of concept of marginalization comes up quite a few times, and it has come up today as well. But obviously that's not kind of that's an important issue and factor probably in shaping Ainu lives and identities, but it's not the only one, right? So if you could kind of share a few thoughts about the kind of most relevant threads that you notice in contemporary Ainu art today.
That's a big question. Thank you very much. Iran karapte, that's the greeting word in Ainu language, which means let me touch your heart. So that's more than hello. So Iran karapte. So science without people doesn't exist. So that's my starting point of everything I do now. And I think the key word that's across this exhibition is diversity. And I want to make sure that you all know that the Saharin Ainu culture and language are quite distinctly different from the mainland Hokkaido Ainu. And I'm a Hokkaido Ainu. And I learned actually this time that my ancestors have met Bronislovas Pilsudskis and has been taking photography. So it's in one of their book, but it's secured, so I'm not able to look at it. So I would like to actually take a picture if that is possible. So it's kind of, this exhibition has brought the past, present together. So we are talking about the past, the collection in the past. We are talking about now, it's continuity, diversity, traditional knowledge. Ongoing traditional knowledge is very important. So I wanted to make sure in this exhibition that our narratives, our stories are mentioned. So as you may have noticed, if you look at the labels of each art pieces that I have picked, that's the own word by each artist. So I haven't written anything. I just wanted them to tell the backstory of the art piece that they have been creating. And as you also may know, Ainu have been a great research subject of science for a really long time, and also commercialized Ainu objects that you have seen, and including this one, have been used as a commercial purposes and touristic attraction. And this bear, for example, has been one of the top sales in the tourist attraction. This was actually introduced by Toshichika Tokugawa Toshichika, who became a very good friend with Ainu man who was good at hunting in Yakumo city in Hokkaido. So Tokugai Toshichika traveled to Switzerland together with his wife and saw the wood carving culture that they do. And they thought, I can bring back this idea to the Ainu because they don't have anything in the winter. So let them share this story. Maybe they can produce the wood carving. And they took the roots, so it became very popular, the souvenir in Hokkaido. So that's the very interesting story behind about this, I think, bear. Because it's about the friendship. It's about how those representation of Ainu. Because now, if you don't know this story, everybody will think, oh, yeah, Ainu, bear, nature, wildness, and stuff like those kind of stereotypical image may occur in your head. But there's actually lots of history. What has formed our history is about the friendship, including Pilsudski's relationships to his wife. And I think for them, he became our family. So in this, what we have been talking now is from your perspective, but from us, he is also one of us. So this is kind of, and I'm very much like to know his relationships to his wife and his children that I don't know anything about, and if there's anything written about it, how wife has seen him as a husband and the father to her children and stuff like that. So, yes. I just stop here.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we can take that up as a question right away, perhaps in this panel. Does anyone have an answer to that? To what extent we know about that relationship and its aspects? I'm looking at Jadwiga, Professor Majewicz.
I started with stating that I was not interested in the biography because my task was to retrieve what Pilsudski actually collected. And this is the essence of what is his achievement. I once was in a group of people who were discussing, they assembled because they wanted to present for the first time publicly the portrait of Pilsudski painted by Vernas, which is now here. Yeah? And the idea was of this assembly was what should we do to honor Bronisław Pilsudski, yeah, and everybody was presenting some ideas and so on, and not finally. I was probably after me there were two people, and when it came to me, I asked one question: if we are to honor Bronisław Pilsudski, then my question is, what for? That's the question for me, not because in Poland, Bronisław Pilsudski did not exist at all. Also, when Józef Piłsudski was the boss of the state. His brother did not exist because, well, that was a very good question. Why? And we got the answer during the conference at Hokkaido University associated with erecting monument number 2 of Bronisław Pilsudski. The first monument stands almost in the center of Yuzhno-Sahalinsk. And the second monument was carved or whatever done, and it was erected in Japan, in the township of Shiraoi. And the question was always, yeah, who he is. When he was honored with a monument in Sakhalin, when he was honored with a monument in Japan, practically no press communication existed about such events. And in my opinion, the press and TV and the media generally should be interested why in Japan, why in Russia they erect monuments to some guy who is evidently ours, and his name is Pilsudski. For the most people, when we started talking in the 1970s in Poland, when we started talking about Pilsudski's brother, the reaction was absolutely the same in every case. So he had a brother? Yeah? And when we answered, well, he had 11 siblings. Yeah? Yeah, impossible. And that was the question why he was not visible at all. And we got the answer from a person who was grandchild of Bronisław and Józef Pilsudski's sister. His name was Kowalski, and Kowalski participated in the special symposium on the occasion of erecting the Japanese monument. Yeah? And he explained it in half a sentence. You don't know anything about Pilsudski, Bronisław, because there was no space for two Pilsudskis in Poland. And that is exactly, that is very harshly said, but it is exactly what happened in Poland. He was simply doomed to be forgotten. That was like a sentence. People were to forget about the other or any other Pilsudski. And it continued after the World War. And when we started publishing the collected works of Bronisław Pilsudski, the book did not find its way to the shelves even in National Library. And to be frank, I simply donated 3 volumes. They were not catalogued and they disappeared. So that's the problem.
So hopefully with this event and exhibition, in some ways we are reclaiming Bronisław Pilsudski's biography and history here. But as we can see in this discussion so far, there are quite a lot of strands to his story, right? So his both as a person of his time period, both as a person from this region, and as someone who has made a contribution to the recording of Ainų language and history. He also has quite an extensive personal legacy as well, as we can see and hear. So I think at this point, I would like to open up the discussion to the audience. So please put your hand up if you have a question to any of the participants. I think you have to speak to the microphone.
Good afternoon. I was just listening about Bronisław Pilsudski, and the question for me arose. He was in exile, and he lived very miserably. How he managed to get the equipment for recording voices, as this was, like you said, very modern equipment. How he managed to do that? Thank you.
I can take this question. Thank you very much. When he had this equipment, he wasn't. His status changed. I said before that his sentence was changed to 10 years in his 10th year of the penal colony. Then he was a settler, and he could be given some work. Then he was commissioned to collect some artifacts for local museums and for many destinations. Then it was very much appreciated, and then he was commissioned to do a survey in Sakhalin. First, the census of the local of the minority of the Ainů all over the island, and also at the same time to conduct the ethnographic research. He was commissioned by the Imperial Academy of Science and also by the Imperial Geographic Society. He was given money and he was given this equipment. You mean Russian? Yes, of course, Russian, yes. Russian one. So he was not, his status was not, he was not an exile at that time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just I can.
I think
Thank you.
for the recording.
I would like to ask you or Pilsudski had studied anthropology or ethnology somewhere, and what scientist, what academia did he follow?
Yeah, go ahead.
He didn't study anthropology. He was self-taught. So basically what happened was he was studying law in St. Petersburg, as Professor has said, one semester, because then he was arrested. So he was 21 when he was sentenced and to exile. And but then in Sakhalin he has met with Dubovsky, with Sieroszewski and so on, and he was learning.
None of them anthropologists.
But they had the skills as well, and they convinced him to do the notebooks, the Sakhalin notebooks as we call them. So he started from that, and that's basically so. Then, as Ambassador said before, that he just was studying. I can't say this word. Meteorology. Yes. Tongue twisters for me. So, and from that he started to have contacts. And how you start studying language is that you have to learn certain words. So you start writing certain words and so on. Was this? Was that? And so on and so on. So, and he started writing the dictionaries as well. So it was a very well. He spent lots of time over that. So he had time to also study as well. So slowly. That's how it happened. So he's self-taught and not exactly inspired and self-taught. Yes.
I think we should add.
Can I add?
Please go ahead, please.
Okay. Pilsudski was very well aware that he is not competent in producing his results, his notes to the academic world. So he always tried to get the most suitable, the best possible supervisor, and he, in his during his life, he managed to publish only one academic book, and this one academic book is called the Materials for the Study of the Ainų Language and Folklore. He was absolutely unable to write this book. Why? Because he was not a linguist. Linguistics as a science was in at its beginnings, and he needed help in order to write, to prepare the materials for publication, he asked for help one of the best linguists ever existing in the history of linguistics. He was a Pole, and he is not very well known because he did not write much in Poland and in Polish. The most important book of his is in German, and is very, very, so to say, much ahead of the trends in linguistics 100 years later, probably or possibly. Maybe someone of you knows the name of Chomsky. When I was a student, Chomsky was a god. And Chomsky invented several things, and he was the author that was mostly quoted in literature. Citations were in millions, almost all of them critical. Nevertheless, for collecting some merits by 10 points, 20 points, and so on, he would be absolutely the best man in history. Nevertheless, he. Nevertheless, the supervisor of Pilsudski was really much better than those Chomskys and so on 100 years earlier. And Rozwadowski was responsible for the linguistic side or part of the job. To transcribe, to find orthography to write the texts. Pilsudski asked for help the founder of the phonology as a branch of science. He was a French, and he was author of the Principles of Phonology in 2 volumes, the absolutely the milestone in linguistics. And he went to such a person to learn how to write what he could produce with his voice, because he was not quite, he was probably perfect in the Ainų language. And that was one problem, that was second problem. And the third problem was that Pilsudski knew several languages, but not English. That means, again, he knew English, but his English was a school pupil in second or third form, something like this. So he would not be able to write a book. Again, whom he asked for help was the first professor of English philology at any university in Poland. He was born in Great Britain. His mother was British, and he spent his young years in Great Britain. He came to Poland as an adult, and thus such a book could originate.
Thank you for sharing this history around Bronisław Pilsudski's
Why there were
work.
no further books? Because there was nobody to help him to do it.
Thank you. I think Dr. Rodowicz-Szechowska also had something to add.
I wanted maybe to add something, that sometimes you don't you develop in your profession along as you go. And it's important to know where to look for help and where to look. He could read widely. And even if he was in Sakhalin, or later he was in Vladivostok, he had access to many books, which he read. Russians translated many books, and they also collected and had many books, even if they were censored. Even if they were academic books were available, and then he could self-teach himself. We know he knew French. Of course, he knew Russian. He knew French. He knew German, and he writes here from Switzerland. And he writes. He knows also English. We know that he traveled through the United States. He went to the Smithsonian Institution. Simply, I think he was intelligent enough to know where to look for help. And even if you don't, you never elaborate, especially I think in ethnographic work, if you have enough materials, you can elaborate them later on with some help, professional help. Does not mean that he wrote, a scientific academic paper while being in Sakhalin. It was collecting the work, collecting objects, putting down notes. This is how I think about his self-formation as an ethnographer.
There was a question.
Thank you. Yes, do we have a question here? No, I think we can have one more.
In fact, I have two comments or questions. Number one, there were several names mentioned during the discussion ending with ski. Dybowski, Czerkanowski, Czerski, Pilsudski, and many others who started their relationship with Siberia or eastern part of Russia, whatever you want to call them, to the empire, and ended up researching in various domains the reality there. Are there any books or generalizations of this phenomenon of political prisoners, deportees, who later, even though they didn't have any academic background in a particular area, developed to be major contributors to the history, geography, meteorology, ethnology of that region? So can we speak, since representation is part of the topic of this conference, can we say that Pilsudski and his interest, his relationship with the Ainų culture represents a bit bigger phenomenon? And secondly, I just wanted to commend you all for assembling this panel. I found this discussion very interesting, and I particularly liked the comment that you made about various, let's say, mechanisms or opportunities created contemporarily in the Ainų community to allow younger people to find their voice and their, let's say, relationship to the past, to rediscover their past, but also to rework their past. I think this comment is particularly relevant here in this city, in this region, where we do have a minority community, a national minority in this country, where a lot of younger people probably should follow this path. So I'll be very happy to talk to you a bit longer during when we finish this debate. Thank you very much.
Is anyone ready to take on the first question about the kind of reflection of the time? About the skis.
The skis in Siberia.
I mean, I'll say something, because as someone from the United Kingdom, I know nothing really of this part of the world, and I apologize in my ignorance. However, from a British perspective, of course, your comment was interesting, because a lot of anthropologists or ethnographers were in fact colonial administrators, and they themselves were not also trained. I was interested by your question, because I think anthropology did not exist as a subject at the time that we're talking about. So everybody, all ethnographic data, everything in itself is self-taught, I would suggest.
Bronisław Pilsudski started his work much later than than Pilsudski, right? The two brothers and
Yes, exactly. In the British French social anthropology world, of course, where Malinowski is coming from as well. This is much later than this time, and we talk in British anthropology of the first real ethnographic workers in what is now Sudan, for example, at a similar time to what we're talking about now by an administrator, and so. I don't know about all of these names that end in ski and whether they were, in fact, related to a similar kind of world.
I would say we talked about it at your residency yesterday, Ambassador, that you have also mentioned at the end of the 19th century to the beginning of 20th century, there are trends that, or belief theories that Ainu had Caucasoid origins, as a Caucasian origins. So lots of researchers, travelers became, including travelers actually, became very fascinated about finding more about people living in the East with little different features than Japanese. Bigger eyes, maybe brown or high cheekbones, quite significantly different features, physical features. So that took also, it's a dark side of history in my eyes, that they have digged the grave, took the human remains, skeletons, and that have been stored in different academic institutions and museums. And now we are working on the repatriation. So Scotland, England this year, for example, Australia, Germany have been repatriated some of the skeletons of Ainu people. That can be shared among other indigenous people in the world that you may have known also. So this has been kind of highlighted in recent years. Revisiting how the research has been done in the past doesn't really correspond to how we do now ethically in the academic world. And this is often not so known, but it's kind of emerging movement that we are working on at the moment. So, yes, I just wanted to mention that.
I just had one comment, which was, we discussed it a little bit before, about what is Bronisław Pilsudski today and what researchers do and so on. And going back to your comment about younger generation who are coming back to their roots and researching who they are, basically, is that we over here as researchers, we come from different backgrounds and we have different experiences with the stories, and some of us are interested in Ainu today. Some of us are interested in the history and the biography of Bronisław Pilsudski. Some of us are interested in anthropological research of him, to collect it, like Professor Majewicz, or me personally, I'm an anthropologist by training. However, I consider myself more of a traveler, so I'm more interested, of course, in the basics of his research as well, but on the sense of traveling, even that he didn't do it, because he wanted to. So all of us, we represent different areas of what we are interested in. And what I also found fascinating, again, going back to over here, that contemporary art is going back to the roots as well, but we see the fashion all over the world as well, with the ethno-design. That's, I think, how is it called? And it's absolutely beautiful what you can see upstairs. You can see the whole diversity of and the history and what it was and how it is today and what we do to keep it alive, especially for younger generations who don't see such a huge value in the historical objects, but once they know who they are, they see the value of the objects which are today, which we can also use. So it's like a, how you call it, the useful art, I would say. I don't know how to say differently. Let's call it this way. Functional. Oh, functional. That's the one. So you see it everywhere, but you may not know that it's actually this, what you're using, that it's with, I know, there you go. Going back to Kanako.
No, functional art is one way of putting it, I think. But within the community, for example, I didn't have time to return to the hotel to get my kimono today, but one of the kimono I have is from the Russian collection in Russia that my aunt found on the photography, and she arranged it with her personal touch. So many of those resources are quite important for us to revitalize the culture, looking into how it was done over 150 years ago and how we can reproduce, redesign it. And that's like a very big part of the continuation of our culture. So I just wanted to mention this, yes.
Thank you. So we started the discussion. Oh, I apologize. Was there another question? Is it important? Or okay, perhaps. Apologies. Apologies. Yes, maybe just a brief question.
Yes.
Okay, maybe I know there is no time for the answer, but I really would like to return to a question you made about his wife, his Ainų wife, because I know he was also kind of involved in this woman, I don't know, not maybe a really movement after he's returned to Poland, but he was a supporter of a feministic, very first feministic movements. So I find this question, let it leave for the next discussion, but his question, my question would be about women in his life, but also about how he, I don't know, how he saw women in political sense of view, maybe.
Thank you. Certainly an important aspect of his biography. Is anyone ready to take that on briefly?
Very complicated. I think it's very complicated.
Would you like to comment?
I can, yes, I can try. This is a challenge for me, but I will try. With his wife in Sakhalin, he could not take her back when he was going back. He had no profession, no future, no money, nothing. She didn't know any other language than Ainų, and he was going. Nobody knew where to. Yes, she was safer. He spoke to her family, and they didn't allow her to go with him. So she stayed, and then after I think 2 years, she remarried with another Ainų named who had a later surname Otani. Then she had children with him. So she had a second family, and they simply didn't stay in touch. That is one. Secondly, he wanted very much not to be alone, but he was not fortunate enough to find a person who would share life with him in that position in which he was. On the other hand, he was very much interested in the way that women were accessing to the new position, yes, in new society. And Japan was becoming a very well-developed society by the end of the Meiji time and after winning the Russo-Japanese War. There were many women traveling, learning, and they were entering social life. He was very much interested in it, and he met with them, with women artists, women in medical school, and others, and writers also, a singer and a pianist, and also socialists, young socialists, women, both from Japan and also from China, students from China. So that's how I would just briefly really sum up this answer. Thank you.
Can I just add?
Yes.
On that? Forgive me, but only because it's relevant to what I was doing, that it was only thanks to the women of the community of Nibutani that I was able to get through that door and be able to collect and have what we have here in the exhibition and the exhibition that we created, only because of the women of that community. So hugely important, I think, your question there is.
Forgive me as well to add something more when we don't have. But in the Ainu culture, women are quite important. It's the maintain the family, take care of household. There's a division of the labor traditionally. One men go to the hunting, fishing, bring the food. Women make sure that they're preserved well to survive throughout the winter, and then do the embroidery. It's a supported community. It's all about how we can maintain our life together, I think. So that's probably why she remarried to another man to survive. And so often they ask, in comparison to Japanese culture, is it like a patriarchal family, like a social structure? But it is not. It's just a division of the work. But it's women are, in my view, very well respected and treated well. So they have their own voice, and therefore very strong and very welcoming people. So when you go to the trip, they would always ask if you have a place to stay, if you have enough food to eat, and if not, you are always welcome to stay with us. But this was also taken as an advantage for many travelers, foreigners or Japanese travelers, because they think, if you go to that village, you get the free food or you get the free accommodation. So that worked negatively too, So just additional comment. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your contributions today, and thank you for your participation and questions. I'm afraid we will not be able to unravel all the richness of Bronislovas Pilsudskis and contemporary Ainu today, so we have to stop here, but I hope we can continue these discussions in the future, and perhaps we'll also find some answers and new questions in the exhibition itself. So let's finish with a round of applause to everyone today.